I've tried to make this video so many times since Friday and I just keep changing my mind. What is up, boxing besties? Welcome back to Xicana Boxing on YouTube. And if this is your first time, hello, my name is Lily. I am an independent boxing journalist who sometimes gets on here and yaps about whatever's going on, but I also cover big fights. So if you like interviews and exclusive content, go ahead and subscribe and you can just become a boxing bestie as well. But of course, I've been waiting for this fight for so freaking long. You know what? I've been waiting for a light heavyweight unification, undisputed, for so long because I remember back when Kovalev was around and mighty, and I wanted Beterbiev versus Kovalev to unify, become undisputed, and we never got that. So I guess I do have to do like Oscar and everybody else when, got to thank Turkey Al Sheikh, boxing's current sugar daddy, for, I guess, making this happen because about time. But this week I wrote about this fight and I've been changing my mind a lot, going back and forth on who I think is gonna win. So I really I just said, fuck it, I'm gonna post it so that you guys can also tell me what you guys think. And I guess maybe by Saturday morning I'll have a pick. And if you're watching this, you're probably a hardcore fan or just more on the hardcore than towards the casual side because this is a big fight and the marketing that the Saudis are doing is so great that literally my best friend is like, I don't really know the background about this guys, but this promo just makes me not only want to see them in the ring, but it makes me want a movie. So good job, Turkey Al Sheikh, on that one as well. But Beterbiev has been such a freaking guy to be reckoned with, the guy with such a badass reputation since the amateurs because he already fought guys like Michael Hunter. He already beat Volstik and Kovalev in the amateurs, right? So this is a guy that was an amateur, celebrated amateur, and then went to the Olympics. And even though lost to Usyk and didn't win a medal, Usyk calls him one of the best opponents that he's ever had. And Beterbiev actually hurt Usyk, dropped Usyk to the body in the Olympics in their match. So this guy has been having a reputation and he's paid his dues in boxing. But like I mentioned in my newsletter, he still remains the underdog mainly because of his injuries. But before I get into that, I really just want to, have ADHD. So I really want to get just kind of like advantages and disadvantages so that we can make this video faster. If you do want to kind of dig a little deeper on what I think about the fight and how I think it's going to go, you can go ahead and read my newsletter and subscribe to it because it's really, really good. Every Monday, no spam. So just looking at Beterbiev, like you look at him and you're like, yeah, this guy looks like those Russians that like just wrestle bears. Like that's just what they do, right? Like that MMA fighter. So he looks just like that, and he fights just like he's wrestled bears before because he gets put down before. He doesn't care. He'll come back and he'll get you. So the advantage is clearly just looking at his record. He's had every single fight won by knockout, and that's cool when you're like, Edgar Berlanga fighting whoever the fuck. But this guy unified. And also a light heavyweight. Like, these guys also punch really hard. So you're not only surviving them, but you're beating them to where they can't even see the finishing bell for the freaking fight. So his power is definitely his main advantage. And like we say in Spanish, el poder es lo último que se va, right? Power is the last thing to leave. So regardless of whatever other disadvantages you may have, the power is the last thing to leave. And this is why it's still such a 50-50 or 60-40 toss em up fight because of this guy's power. But the thing is that he doesn't just have power, like maybe a Mike Tyson or, I don't know, a one punch knockout type of guy. He actually breaks you down. His relentless pressure is just ridiculous because he, like I said, can take punches, but in his approach, he will take those punches in order to hurt you because he knows he can and he knows that he will. So I think his relentless pressure is even more of an advantage than his power because I don't think Bivol has ever been pushed like that or pressured like that, right? Because even his win against Canelo, which was a little bit more engaging than any of the other fights, he was still taking it easy as a guy that was, winning the fight. And I'll get there when I get there. But with Beterbiev, that guy comes at you so fast and it doesn't even let you set up punches. So while Bivol does have that tactical ability where he sets up some really nice punches behind a jab, can he even get into the rhythm to do that with, Beterbiev coming at him like a freaking crazy person? So just the fact that Bivol's going to be pressured into the more uncomfortable exchanges that I think he's ever been accustomed to, especially like early in the fight, because yes, I know that Beterbiev was going to be cautious, especially more so in this unification fight, undisputed. But the guy, the guy has a style, and he's going to stick to it. With that being said, I think something that people are overlooking is that, his experience, because yes, they both have super crazy amateur records. Yes. Like a bunch of guys over there on that side of the world are just mostly celebrated amateurs, and then they get so celebrated amateurs and then they go pro. So these guys have seen it all. And I think with Berdabia specifically, he has seen more styles, like Bivol in his amateurs and his Olympic, run than vice versa. Because, I don't think Beebles ever had, like I mentioned, that many guys that are going to pressure him in the way that Berta Beeb is about to on Saturday. But I do feel like Bertabiev's used to, yes, it's a Soviet style. Yes, it's more Soviet specific, but it's still more tactical. And I think Bertabiev is familiar with those type of guys, not only the amateurs, again, over there where they're used to those type of styles, but again, he's an Olympian, amateur, celebrated amateur. So I do feel like that the fact that he's already been in fights countless times. I mean, the motherfucker had 300 fights in the amateurs and only lost five. I don't think I can do anything 300 times and do it right, let alone fight somebody. So, and win. So, this guy, so you know what I mean? Like, this experience to me is it's gonna matter. And I think that does count as an advantage. But let's move to the disadvantages because there's plenty. And I think they're very valid as to why people are not necessarily feeling comfortable as to pick him regardless of having a perfect KO ratio. And I know the main one people say is his age, right? People are like, well, he's 39. And yeah, like in boxing, that's old as heck. It might be people doing the old yeller thing here. But I don't think it's much of his age as much as it's the wear and tear, because like the age and inactivity, and that's another thing, inactivity, you bring up, well, that's a really big disadvantage, right? Because he hasn't fought, hasn't been very active in the last couple of years because of the injuries. And to me, it's the injuries and the wear and tear, not the age and inactivity that is the disadvantages when it comes to Artur Beterbiev. Because the inactivity and the age, the motherfucker's only been getting older and getting better opposition, and he's still beating guys to a pulp. So like, and even when guys drop him first, like, cause he's been down before, he's there to be hit. Like he will take some punches, and he's been down, and he comes up, and he'll make you regret that. But that's what I mean is like the wear and tear, right? The fact that he has had all these battles, unified, right, and unified against at the time one literally number one and number two. So we both kind of been, yeah, he has so many title defenses, he's been tactical, but because of that, he has never been kind of like had to really fight for it, right? Not even again, not even against Canelo. So I just feel like the wear and tear in Beterbiev can definitely be a factor because he's injured. This fight was supposed to be in June, I believe, and it wasn't because homeboy got injured. And it's like, okay, I think that's your body as a soon to be 40-year old telling you, like, I think it's time to give it a rest because I I I'm 30 something and my knees already just so I don't this man is just something else. So yes, I feel like, he's been beating these guys regardless that he's getting older or that he hasn't fought in a year or whatever. So that I don't think is gonna matter because again, this guy probably wrestles bears in top mountains and doesn't even matter. He lives in Canada, so he's fine. But I do think it's the wear and tear and maybe, the fact that people is the type of guy that's gonna push you to the later rounds because this guy, especially in the later of his career now, he has gone. His knockouts have been in the championship rounds, 10 and up, right? So I think if there's someone that can definitely make him go to distance for the first time ever, it is Bivol, and can make him see the scorecards for the first time. In the professionals, no, I'm not favoring him either. So I also think Bertabiev's wear and tear comes from just having a better resume because he, even his last fight, Killian Smith, yes, he lost to Canelo and he had gotten, Ryder, didn't look so great against Ryder, but he's still a former unified champion, right? Even if it's in a lower weight class, he was still a bigger guy. So he just dismantled him. And I thought that was going to be, somewhat competitive, especially after the inactivity, right? And then Anthony Yard, who gave Kovalev a hell of a great fight. That was his last outing, who he also knocked out. That was a great freaking fight. Joe Smith Jr., who hurt people. I thought that was gonna be like, oh, that's gonna be good because Joe Smith Jr. also punches hard. Beterbiev was like, no. And he battered the heck out of him. Marcus Brown was another fight where we're just like, oh, he's injured and inactive. And he got, pushed in that fight and he still won. That fight was such a good fight now that I remember. So Marcus Brown, and then I'm not too familiar with the guy before that. And then I know he fought Volzdik. So that Volzdik fight to me was amazing as well because number one and number two, and I was kind of like with this fight where I'm like, I don't know who to pick, but Berta Biev chose that, showed that he would walk your ass down. Let's move on to the tactical nightmare that is Dmitry Bivol. So Dmitry Bivol también is Russian, but he's more Russian because of like the whole Soviet Union shit than because of his Russian descent. If that makes sense, he's like Moldovan and Korean. So he also has an extensive amateur career with over 280 victories, I believe. And it's just, these guys over there, they're built different before going to the amateurs. And before I was really media, I would go to Legends Boxing Gym in Norwalk back when that was a thing. And I actually witnessed Bivol spar a couple times. And I would just watch him, train there on some days. And I watched some spar Benavides. I actually have a little story about that and his scary. I think it was his manager. She was so scary. I wrote about that in my newsletter. She's so cool, but so scary. And they would spar Benavides, and I watched it, and it was amazing. And I would just, the way that guy comes into the gym, he's already wrapped up. He is the only fighter I've ever seen who walks into the gym already wrapped up. And I just thought that was very interesting. And I'm like, that's like some bad motherfucker shit. Do you guys hear that kitten? But anyways, back to Bivol. Some fans are like, oh, his style is boring, blah, blah. And other fans don't. Other fans just see it as more of a tactical style. And because it's more of a Soviet style where it's like more poppy and the punches go in and out, I love his footwork. It's very like sharp, jumpy. Like he's always jumping. It's like a rabbit. And I just love it. And it's very like Tim Zoo kind of like they have like very similar. It's just Bivol is more tactical with his approach. And I just love his style. And I don't think, well, some people do find it boring and it's like, oh, it's like of entertainment. I do feel like the majority, especially of like more towards the hardcore boxing fans, can appreciate the fact that he just dominates guys, even though they would, like him to at least, have a little sense of urgency, but he doesn't. And I do think, when it comes to advantages and disadvantages, that Bivol does have momentum on his side because, yeah, he was inactive for a bit, but he beat Canelo, and he beat him. He beat Canelo pretty comfortably. And, then he went to get a knockout recently against this random guy who I felt very bad for because he shouted out his mom at the weigh-in. And I was like, oh, God, this guy has no idea. But, advantages is definitely his speed and movement. He's like, I said, that Soviet style is very pop, quick in and out. I think his footwork is amazing. So that speed and movement just together, it's so fluid. And I think it's the reason why he is able to dominate so well because those attributes together is just what makes him just that much of a dominant fighter. And, just that technical mastery that he has. It's basically he can beat you just behind a jab, right? Or use that jab to maintain his distance, but then utilize it to also set up some beautiful punches. And even with Canelo, I think that was a more engaging fight, and I think he took more risks because Canelo's a smaller guy, and he's gonna take more risks than me with the in his weight class. But I do feel like he's still very dominant, and he showed that had maybe Canelo thinking, "Am I the best in the world?" An advantage I think he also has is that he maintains his composure during, pressure when being hurt so far because, like I mentioned earlier, Joe Smith Jr. hurt him and he had him like all kind of like wobbled up a little bit, walking to his corner. And, he recouped right away and he came back to beat his ass. But it was still, a moment where maybe another fighter could have panicked or could have, made not the right choices following the round in the following round. And I think people did great. So I think that also just speaks to his amateur ability, like the fact that these guys are just kind of literally like just going off muscle memory because they've had such an extensive amateur career. But I think when it comes to disadvantages, the lack of knockout power, when it comes to against a guy like Beterbiev, it matters. Like usually it doesn't because it's fine. You don't have to hurt your opponents. You don't even have to really do anything to them because you're dominating. But when you need power to maybe get someone like, yeah, get off me real quick, right? Like he don't have power like that. Like yes, he got a knockout, and yes, it was a spectacular knockout in his last fight, but also like that guy was there to get knocked the fuck out. Let's be for real. With that being said, I do feel like the lack of power is going to not be a great thing when it comes to facing someone with so much more power than you. I think a disadvantage is also the fact that he doesn't take many risks. That could be a disadvantage because when it comes to Beterbiev, he's going to force you to take risk. And if you've been in a place where you've never been put there before, where you really have to risk anything because you're winning comfortably on the cards and you're not really caring about hurting your opponent. These are things that also kind of like, it's on instinct where it's like, oh, well, you hurt. And then you're like, okay, well, I got to tighten up and come back even harder. So this is what I mean when it comes to, never really having that spark to ever be put in that situation. And maybe he won't even be put in the situation. Maybe he'll dominate Beterbiev and maybe that'll be that because that's the thing about people. Because a lot of people have him as a favorite not only because he's a younger guy, which helps a lot because at 30, what is it, 32, 33, he's at his boxing prime, really. So at the end of the day, it's his age that it's gonna be an advantage. But the fact that this guy, it's just a much fresher approach, and maybe he can go the distance. Like he's got everybody the distance. He's gonna make you go the distance, and he can stink it up. Bivol has the ability to turn this into like an Usyk versus Gassiev back in like the World Boxing Super Series where you had like this heavy puncher guy who you knew was like just it could happen anytime, just flatline, you know, he could just flatline Usyk, but Usyk the whole time outboxed him, right? Like just completely outboxed him. He could never catch him. I think that in this specific fight, Beterbiev was much more, much more, yeah, he has more strategy in his approach and he is, there's pressure again. So I think it's not the same thing, but Bibol's style and the fact that he has been so dominant before can make it a where he can just dominate and stake this fight up and make it a dominant fight. But I'm leaning more to where it will be hella competitive. And when it comes to his last opponents, the last guy again, I mentioned him was there to get knocked out. Lyndon Arthur, I'm not that familiar with them either. Gilberto Ramirez Zurdo, I've never really been high on Zurdo. So that win for me was like, I mean, good win, like great win on his resume too, especially after all that shit. Zurdo was talking and went up to do nothing. But like, I was expecting that. Like, I was completely expecting that outcome. But that's a great name to have on your resume, especially after beating the other Mexican. Canelo Alvarez was like the best in the world, and a bunch of people were like, "Oh no, Canelo can still beat Bivol because Bivol is a smaller 175." No, weight classes matter, okay? And I've seen this guy like against Benavides, who's like kind of taller and bigger than him, and the guy is, he did great. So to me, it's that jab too. Like that was like the worst pairing for Canelo. I still don't know why he picked this fight. Anyway, that I think that name alone in his resume is like great, but I still think because the other two guys, I think Craig Richards, like yeah, like he's alright, but he lost I think his last fight as well, his last couple fights, and then the other guy I also don't know. So who do I think wins? And at first, the first time I filmed this video, I picked Bivol. I said Bivol's gonna win because of the fact that he can stink up a fight. He can stink up a fight. If you know a guy that can just like Shakur Stevenson, or like where it's just like, well, they're just gonna fucking just like win because they can and they're dominant, but they don't care about knockouts. They're not gonna go out of their way, right? So that's the thing. They're taught to just win, and doesn't matter how they do it. Like, yes, maybe he may be feeling a little sort of way, like, oh, yes, I'm going to try to do something because I got a knockout in my last fight and I like that. But I don't think he's fucking stupid. I don't think he's dumb where he'll be like, oh, yeah, let me now try to do the same against this guy who literally has knocked out every single guy and hurt a guy who's now fighting at heavyweight. So, yes, age, yes, injuries, but I do think that Beterbiev has one last on him, and I do think this one's it. I do think he has one last in him. I might change my mind tomorrow. I might be like, I might freaking stop this video and be like, you know what? No, like Vivo's just a younger guy, and like, father time will always get you. If a fighter don't, it's gonna be father time. So it could just be a dominant ass performance for Vivo. But I just feel like watching Beterbiev just this fight week. And just like his mannerisms, he knows he's that guy. Beterbiev knows. Like he's like, yeah, it's over for you, right? So I just feel like I gotta go with my guy Beterbiev. Like I know I should feel more an inclination towards Bivol just again, age, everything. Like realistically, my head is telling me Bivol, but my heart's like, no. Mi Arturito has one left in him, and he's gonna give it his all. And damn, if he fucking like I feel like when he's injured before, and maybe not trying to like overdo it, he did what he did. So I feel like because he's had better battles, he's more battle tested. I think that is gonna matter, and he just has like kind of like Crawford, where like they're like, yeah, all right, like okay, and they just, oh my god, like I just do think that regardless of who wins, it's gonna be a badass freaking fight, and I kind of want to like do a fight watching party. Let me know if anybody's interested in that, whether that be like a little Zoom party where we're just like watching the fight together and like commentating within each other, whether it means going live. And I'm obviously not going to show the fight, but kind of just doing like a hangout. Let me know in the comments if anybody would be ready for that. But the undercard, I don't really understand the whole concept. Also, pay attention to this because the undercard is going to be on the zone, and the main event is going to be on ESPN. Why? I don't know. Riyadh season's doing this. I don't know. So the undercard is going to be on the zone, and that's going to be Chris Eubank Jr., Jay Opataya, which is probably the only other fight in there. Oh, that I'm really cool with. Oh no, Sky Nicholson, the women's fight. I'm looking forward to. So there's some fights in there in the undercard, and this is a fight that's going to be like for us in the U.S. during the day time because it's in Saudi Arabia. So this is one of those cards that's gonna be during the day. So pay attention about that. The zone undercard, ESPN. Um, Main event for some fucking reason. I already hate when like they move from ESPN Plus to ESPN only, or like when they move around because of football, whatever. Like that already gets on my nerves. So the fact that like these are like two different things, even though they're in the same thing, it makes me like I don't know, like I have ADHD, so like it fucks with me a little bit. But I'm done yapping. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think Bivol's just got, everything going for him and he's going to win? So just let me know what you think in the comments and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.